Hello everyone, welcome to the Lightning Ball channel. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please do so and activate the notification bell. Your support fuels my continued efforts. In our previous episode, we discussed how Rimuru liberated Velgrind and granted her the new ultimate skill, Lord of Flame God, endowing her with sufficient strength to seek the dispersed soul of Emperor Rudra. On another front, Manus Michael was successfully repelled by Rimuru, retreating from the airship with Spectre Lord Feldway and others in tow. Although no definitive victory was declared, Rimuru significantly disrupted their plans. Not only did he annihilate the Empire's army and reclaim Storm Dragon, but he also aided Scorched Dragon Velgrind in breaking free from Manus Michael's control. Admittedly, Rimuru himself was not confident in defeating Michael outright, yet he believed that given enough time, Seal could devise a strategy. Thus, a step back from both parties was, for Rimuru, an ideal outcome. This episode shifts focus to the Labyrinth. Concurrently with Rimuru's battles, fierce conflicts unfolded within. The root cause circles back to Spectre Lord Feldway. Let's get started. Despite lingering uncertainties, after the great battle, Rimuru yearned to celebrate with a feast for those who had emerged safely from such peril. Accompanied by Carrion and Frey, who had fallen into slumber due to their awakening, Rimuru and his entourage returned to Tempest City. They found the city's outskirts damaged and ablaze, but under Barrier Lord Geld's protection, the fire did not spread, and only minor injuries were sustained. Upon Rimuru's return, Shuna and others busied themselves, preparing food and wine to welcome back the heroes. Across from Rimuru, Ramaris and company reported on the extent of the damage. As Ramaris indulged in food and drink, she remarked that even when Veldora's excessively explosive sister blasted away the first 50 levels of the labyrinth, she had felt a bit uneasy. Yet, her faith in Veldora reassured her that as long as he was there, no significant trouble would ensue. Seizing the moment, Veldora grandiosely embraced this narrative, declaring that even in the face of his sister, he never once felt intimidated. He admitted to being somewhat careless, allowing underhanded individuals to interfere, otherwise, he was confident he could have triumphed over Velgrind. Rimuru couldn't help but feel speechless, remembering Veldora's timid demeanor when facing Velgrind, and was exasperated by Veldora's boastful claims. However, Veldora's words elicited cheers from those around, including Benimaru and Cherries. Veldora wore a satisfied expression, but it quickly vanished as Ramaris continued speaking. She pointed out Veldora's recklessness but noted thankfully that everything ended well, suggesting there might be no further cause for concern. Rimuru's alertness spiked upon hearing this. Ramaris hesitated, indicating that something unknown to Rimuru had occurred within the labyrinth. Utilizing his magical perception to survey the labyrinth, Rimuru detected anomalies. The once slumbering labyrinth guardians had awakened, yet traces of battle lingered. Chloe's presence felt faint, and her physical condition seemed compromised. Most peculiarly, Scorched Dragon Velgrind had never entered the labyrinth, so why was her aura detectable in its deepest levels? And most importantly, where had Demon Lord Dino gone? With these questions in mind, Rimuru set aside Veldora and the others to inquire about the events that had unfolded from those who had stayed behind. In tracing the roots of it all, one must delve into Feldway's story. Previously mentioned, the TenSura universe encompassed multiple worlds. Beyond the paramount central world, there existed a multitude of other realms categorized into material, spiritual, and semi-spiritual worlds. Feldway hailed from one such realm, the Otherworld, a land ravaged by endless wars, dominated by three major races, the Phantoms, Insectids, and Cryptids. Wearied by perpetual conflict, they set their sights on other worlds in search of a sanctuary. However, the means to dispatch troops from the Otherworld en masse was singular, through temporal rifts known as Underworld Gates, firmly under the control of Demonkind, who unsurprisingly, would not permit invading races free passage. Spectre Lord Feldway, leader of the Phantoms, harbored deep resentment towards this situation. Long-standing battles had filled his heart with hatred, a rage that seemed poised to reduce the world to ashes. As noted in episode 56, after the creation of the world by Star King Dragon Veldanava, to operate more efficiently, he crafted the angelic race, devoid of self-awareness, including the 7 angels of origin, envisioned as pillars supporting the world's will. Feldway was the first of these creations. Upon receiving a name and consciousness, Feldway led the angels in aiding Veldanava. Subsequently, numerous new races emerged, the 7 primordial demons, the giant king as an incarnation of the earth, the elemental queen as the star's administrator, and the vampire race's Twilight Valentine intending on forging a super-civilization. From spiritual beings to mortal flesh, the world evolved towards diversity. Ultimately, humanity, Veldanava's favored creation, came into being. Humans' impeccable capacity for innovation brought forth many novel entities, delighting Veldanava. To ensure humanity's survival in this harsh world, Veldanava resolved to eliminate all malevolent beings. Feldway, following this directive, eradicated various monsters, leaving only evil god Evarage, a being with strength rivaling that of true dragons, lacking intellect and driven solely by instinct for destruction. Even Feldway was powerless in a one-on-one battle, and despite months of conflict alongside the 7 angels of origin and primordial Red Gi, they failed to vanquish Evarage. Learning of these events, Veldanava decided to seal Evarage in the Otherworld's spooky palace. Although Feldway vehemently argued for Evarage's execution, Veldanava speculated on the potential emergence of intelligence within Evarage. Thus, without defying the command, Feldway and 3 seraphim remained in the Otherworld, overseeing Evarage's actions. Over time, the Otherworld slowly gave birth to a new race of cryptids, nurtured by the magicules leaked from Evarage. Like Evarage, they lacked consciousness, endlessly battling on instinct, akin to divine failures. Then, as Veldanava had predicted, the first cryptid with intelligence was born, a development that Veldanava found astonishing and to whom he bestowed a name, marking the emergence of the later-known insect Lord Zelenus. Thus, insects, essentially cryptids at their core, formed a significant faction under Zelenus' leadership. However, Feldway underwent a transformation, his nature altered by prolonged exposure to Evarage's magicules, evolving alongside 3 other seraphims into mystic angels, while the rest of the angel race gradually gained self-awareness, transforming into phantoms. This marked the establishment of a new relationship among the 3 major races of the Otherworld. Initially, phantoms and insects, united by Veldanava's will, did not interfere with each other but collectively fought against cryptids. Veldanava's disappearance, however, led to the collapse of this relationship. At first, Feldway believed Veldanava would be resurrected immediately, but even after centuries, there was no sign of his return, filling Feldway with dread. Considering true dragons were immortal beings, the only explanation for Veldanava's absence was his abandonment of the world. Feldway's heart was filled with hatred. Though God loved humanity, humanity ultimately killed God. Feldway, as a divine-appointed guardian of the world's will, felt it was his duty to punish humanity. He resolved to conquer the central world, destroy its diversity, and obliterate the world once cherished by Veldanava, all in hopes of seeing Veldanava again. Feldway believed his atrocities would incite Veldanava's wrath, leading to his resurrection and punishment. Thus began the true turmoil as the 3 major races of the Otherworld engaged in relentless conflict, plunging into a chaotic era. This chaos persisted for a long duration because, without control over the underworld gates, it was impossible to deploy armies back to the central world where Veldanava resided. Unless Veldanava was resurrected, the Otherworld could never return to its original state. Among all, the most detested was the primordial Black, the demon who not only regarded phantoms as part of the evil race but also harbored hostility towards anyone who went against Veldanava's will. This infuriated Feldway, who believed it was these demons who were the greatest obstacle to Veldanava's resurrection. Despite this animosity, annihilating primordial Black was an impossible task. In the Otherworld and Netherworld, primordial demons faced no restrictions, their power immensely amplified compared to their presence in the material world, rendering them virtually invincible. Feldway was similarly unconstrained, so regardless of the depth of their mutual loathing, either could substantially harm the other. This impasse significantly complicated Feldway's desire to return to Veldanava's world. However, during a moment of helplessness, Feldway heard a mysterious voice within. This voice, claiming to be a sentient power temporarily identifying as Rudra, shared a common goal with Feldway, the resurrection of the great creator god, Star King Dragon Veldanava. Feldway was electrified by this revelation and decided to engage in a thorough conversation with this conscious power. Through their dialogue, Feldway learned that the voice belonged to Veldanava's ultimate skill, Lord of Justice. Discovering a shared purpose and belief in Veldanava's enduring spirit, Feldway committed to assist Lord of Justice wholeheartedly. Given their aligned goals, addressing Lord of Justice as Rudra seemed inappropriate, prompting Feldway to formally name it Michael. What was meant as an offhand remark led to a transformation in Lord of Justice, its once faint consciousness sharpened, officially evolving into Manus Michael. Subsequently, the otherworld underwent significant changes. Michael redefined the relationship between the three major races using half of the central world as Zelenis's domain, freeing Feldway from the constraints of the otherworld. A millennium passed, and everything proceeded according to plan. The weakening of Rudra's soul allowed Michael's powers to gradually unshackle. Various impediments turned into allies, and with Rudra removed and Gi defeated, the world would fall into the hands of Manus Michael and Feldway, leaving only the awaited resurrection of Veldanava-sama. Just then, Manus Michael expressed a sincere desire for Feldway to become another vessel for himself. With Michael already having turned Velgrind's parallel existence into his own, the possibility of transferring a backup of his power to Feldway was feasible. This meant Feldway would also wield Lord of Justice's abilities, and his phantoms would serve as a power source, granting Feldway an impeccable castle guard. Feldway stated he would accept Michael's proposal only if their friendship remained intact, a bond that was naturally solid as a rock. Subsequently, Michael took residence within Feldway's being, setting the stage for the final battle. However, Feldway harbored a lingering unease regarding Lightspeed hero Masayuki, who bore a striking resemblance to Rudra and possessed Rudra's lost unique skill, the Chosen One, leading Feldway to suspect Masayuki might be Rudra's contingency. To eliminate any risk, Feldway initiated his plan. Clearly, the optimal moment for Feldway to eliminate Masayuki coincided with Rimuru and his subordinates heading to the Empire's battlefield and Veldora's departure from the Labyrinth to confront Velgrind. The focus shifts to Ramiris as the Labyrinth's alarm blared, prompting everyone within to immediately switch to combat mode. Then, through the command center's large screen, Ramiris spotted a disconcerting situation. She recognized the invaders as mutated angels, specifically mystic angels, all of whom had taken on physical forms. The leading mystic angel, adorned in black and gold mythic-level gear with 3 pairs of pure white wings radiating dazzling light, was particularly breathtaking. Astonishingly, the existence point of this leading mystic angel reached 3 million, with the 5 following him estimated between 400,000 to 700,000. A side note here, the concept of existence points was introduced for the first time here, quantifying magical volume and physical capabilities into numerical values, further augmented by the energy from equipment. However, since it doesn't account for skill, it's not entirely indicative of combat effectiveness. An example is Gabda, whose EP is merely 20,000, yet he can contend with individuals around the 130,000 EP mark in actual combat, making EP a reference rather than an absolute measure. Existence points ranging from 10,000 to 100,000 correspond to A class monsters, and from 100,000 to 400,000 to special A class monsters. Achieving Demon Lord Seed status usually means an EP of at least 200,000, like Clayman before his awakening, with an approximate EP of 400,000, marking the threshold for an S-rated disaster class. An awakened Clayman, with an EP around 800,000, falls into the special S category. Above this, surpassing 1 million EP designates a being as super awakened class, with true dragons and Gi at the pinnacle, classified as catastrophe class. Back to Ramiris, she felt panic, facing super awakened class adversaries, compounded by the Labyrinth's guardians still in slumber, leaving them short-handed for defense. Her subordinates, witnessing her distress, volunteered for combat. Cherries, Trini, and others acknowledged that facing the enemy was their only option, bolstered by resurrection bracelets that allowed them to persist even in death. Shinji and other disciples of Gadra, now allies, also stepped forward, resolved to contribute. Encouraged by this unity, Ramiris steeled herself for what lay ahead. With tasks allocated, they promptly set in motion. The battle within the labyrinth was imminent. Alright, that's all for this video. The TenSura light novel series has garnered many fans not only because of its intriguing story setup but also because its so-called villains are not merely objects of disdain. Imagine being Feldway, aware of your master's immortality yet witnessing no signs of resurrection over tens of thousands of years. What conclusions might you draw? Feldway's belief that Veldanava has abandoned the world, compounded by his endless anticipation for Veldanava's rebirth and the continuous warfare, seems entirely reasonable to me. Additionally, this episode introduced characters like Ivaraj and Zelenus, who are crucial to future events, and provided more details on Veldanava's story. More importantly, it shed light on Feldway's objective regarding Masayuki. By now, it's quite clear that Masayuki is Rudra reincarnated, and we've learned that Masayuki's unique skill, the Chosen One, was precisely what Rudra lost due to the soul degradation from countless reincarnations. In our next episode, we will dive into the battle within the labyrinth, facing Feldway's assault plan. We'll discuss Ramiris's various countermeasures and the situation with Masayuki. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support is greatly appreciated. See you in the next one.